Assalamu alaikum and good greetings. So today I'll be watching a video titled Best of Ricky Gervais on Religion number 2. So we have watched the number 1 or the first video recently, and if you wish to watch for that reaction, you can see or look it up for that video in my channel. This will be the second one. So without further ado, let's watch.
Yeah, in the greater scheme of things, there are probably worse things than people believing in all the different gods. It doesn't affect me because I'm free and liberated and safe. But yeah, you can still be annoyed. It's ignorance that annoys me more than anything. Whatever it is, it's not. I don't want to keep going after religion because that's only one form of this belligerent, willful. And it's not even that. It's you can't sort of help what you believe in. Most people aren't going around thinking this will annoy people, or I'm trying to oppress people's rights. They just think, I believe in God because that's how my brain worked when I was little, and now I think, yeah, there's probably a God. And most religious people aren't crazy. It's something else. Again, it's something, you know. We worry about the people who believe the bad bits in their holy book as well as the good bits. Most nice people who believe in God, they can tell the difference. They know the nice bits. They cherry pick and they know the nice bits from the bad bits. They don't do the bad bits. And my point is, if you know the bad bits from the good bits, you don't need the holy book. You know, you're already a moral person.
Okay, that one. I kind of understand or know what type of things that is being mentioned, right? Meaning that in a certain holy books, there are portions where you can argue that even the people that believe in that religion do not do anymore, or have left behind those things. Hence, such comments, right? Is that true for all religion? Meaning, if you are of any religion, do you think that there are portion of what is written in your scripture that is no longer part of the practiced religion nowadays?
I think it's very important you challenge your own beliefs. I mean that's what science does, really. It doesn't constantly try and prove itself right. It follows the evidence, whatever that is. In fact, it tries to prove itself wrong. It doesn't sulk. When science thinks something and then it discovers it was wrong, it doesn't sulk because it found that out too. It's the question I often get. That people say, well, you're an atheist. You know, you're closed-minded. No, I'm not. You know, that's a strange thing to say. I think the opposite is true. I'm going to always follow the evidence, whatever that is. And they say things like, if someone proved to you God existed, would you believe? Well, of course I would, by definition. In fact, it would be the greatest scientific discovery of all time. Scientists would celebrate. They'd run round. At the moment, we have no evidence for the existence of any God. All right?
So my assumption with that statement is those who, number one, claim to follow the evidence. Number two, says there's no proof of God. Normally, they begin with anything that exists should be able to be detected or measured or gauged empirically, right? And from there, obviously, even if the claim is beyond the empirical world, they still stick to that. No, it should be proven within what we can measure empirically, right?
Or anything supernatural. Never have. Possibly never will. But who knows? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. When someone puts forward a jar of God, we'll test it for its godliness. And if we find there's anything godly in it, we'll write it down.
So yeah, that example, I think emphasized that the core belief that it should be empirical. If your claim is true that there's God, even if the claim says that God is outside the universe because God created universe, yeah, if that claim is true, you should be able to test or measure God empirically, which logically that doesn't make sense in terms of asking for evidence in such way for claim that is outside of that realm, right? I'm not saying by saying this in itself it proves God, but I'm saying that the demand itself doesn't match the claim, right?
I think that's really important, and it comes back to the point we made earlier about ideas not having human rights. Because I think people think when we criticise religion, we're criticising people who are religious, which is couldn't be further from the truth, because we think they're victims too.
Absolutely. I mean, the word Islamophobia is all about that. People think that if you criticise Islam, you're criticising Muslims. Quite the contrary, they're the primary victims of Islam.
Well,
Now, that's the interesting part, right? Meaning, in many conversation, some people say things like, no, I'm not criticizing you, I'm criticizing Islam. And because they say, why are you reacting so much? But interestingly, if from many Muslims' perspective, if you criticize me, why should I care? Because that's meaning I have weakness, I have flaws. Meaning you can criticize me all you want, that doesn't matter. But when you criticize Islam, that's the bigger issue. That's the bigger, meaning that's closer to heart for us. When we accept the truth that there's God and this is from God, so when you challenge that, or when you criticize that, or when you say bad things about that, the reaction tend to be more than you criticizing me. So I think it is interesting when a totally different perspective or paradigm, where what offends people, is it because I'm criticizing you, or what I'm criticizing your belief, right? Which one is heavier? Yeah.
Well, this is the other thing that sometimes I say to Christians, why do you believe in that God? And they say, well, it's the only God to believe in. But if you were born in Delhi, you wouldn't believe in that God, probably. If you were born in ancient Rome, you certainly wouldn't believe in that God. But it is a thing there that they.
Yes, you believe in the God of your parents and your grandparents. Most people do.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's conversions, and there are many people that seek one. I don't know. They window shop. They go, "What can you do for me? What do I have to do? Forget it. What do you do? I can still smoke and drink. I'll have that one." Of course. Yeah.
There are people who say, "Well."
Okay, several things. I think we cannot deny that most people follow the religion of their parents, their forefathers, etc. Right? That tend to be the case. But he also mentioned about people search for a religion that they want, or the truth, etc. But I'm not sure whether he speaks from experience, where people that convert to a religion because of convenience. Okay, that religion seems better because I'm promised of heaven despite I can do what I want. But this one is more strict, for example, right? Is that truly how most conversion happen, or is just from his limited experience? Because most conversion that I know, especially when someone embrace a religion, right, I don't see it as such. When people do, as Ricky Gervais mentioned just now, it's more of leaving religion behind, right? Yeah, that's my opinion, and that's my view. What do you think?
Well, I was on a quest and I tried Buddhism, and it was all right, but I thought maybe I'd try again, so I tried Hinduism.
I know, yeah. Which one spoke to you?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. And it's.
But anyway, that this thing is, if you look into the interfaith dialogue, or from Islamic perspective, we have the street da'wah, etc., right, where we spread Islam. If you look at the conversation, it's not like come join us. It's easier for you. You do not have to do this. It's rarely. I never see that type of conversation yet. It's almost everything about what can you prove, what makes sense, what is logical, right? It's always like that. So it is. So that's where I'm interested to see whether he is exposed to that conversation before, and what does he think about that. Because if his worldview is, based on his own experience and people around him, and maybe people around him is correctly like what he said, yeah, maybe his perspective is skewed because of that.
It should be irrelevant, but it isn't, because it does infringe on people's liberties. Certainly religion, not spirituality. You know, someone believing in God, that's fine.
Harmless.
Absolutely, doesn't bother me at all. Religion isn't harmless. It's when your God starts telling you that you should kill homosexuals, and you know,
Exactly.
that's when it's not harmless anymore.
I think
Is there any religion that simply says that? I cannot think of any, but is there?
Religion's greatest trick wasn't convincing some people that there was a God who was all-powerful. It was convincing everyone else that you couldn't ridicule that idea. It's when you get them. I think there'd be more atheists and less faithful if you weren't allowed to teach anything, you weren't allowed to mention any gods or any beliefs or atheism, right, until they were 20. I think we'd see a different pattern. The human brain, when it's young, is a sponge. It has to be. It has to take in all the information. It has to trust its parents, its elders, to survive. Without question, don't touch the fire. Why not? Don't go near the wolf. Don't touch that spider with the red bit. Don't touch that. Why not? Just don't. There is a God. What? There is a God. And if you're bad, you go to hell. Okay? And if that's constantly confirmed, like all the other things, wolves eat you, black widows kill you, fires burn you, if it's given that same level of credence and truth, you're never going to get over it. It's going to be a lot harder to undo that. I think the myths came up, maybe, you know, often as a stopgap to knowledge until we find out more. You know, the Earth is flat, and no, we've proved now. Okay, the Earth's not flat. We were wrong. Okay, but that's not personal. You don't take that personally. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect your afterlife. You know, and so they often want to hold on to that, right? But only because of the way they've been conditioned. We know it's fun to tell children there's a Santa Claus, and there's fairies at the bottom of the garden, and all these cute things. It's cute till they're 7 or 8. If they're 34, it's a bit embarrassing socially. This is my son. What's he doing? He's looking for fairies. Is he? Okay, we better leave. If you're born in India, you're probably a Hindu. If you're born in America, you're probably a Christian. If you're born in Pakistan, you're probably a Muslim. That's a coincidence, isn't it? That you're always born into the right God. Always. Isn't that lucky? I was born into the right God. All those others are going to hell. But I was born into the right religion. I'm going to heaven. It's strange.
No. To be fair, I can see that point, right? Because most people are of the religion where they, you know, coincidentally being born into. But the trend of conversion, I think, I think with the age of, you know, borderless communication that we have now, the rate of people convert from one religion to another, I think is accelerating to a certain extent. And if you see the amount of people that actually becoming Muslim day to day, right? I think it will challenge that idea that you know, it will come a time where it's difficult to say that the number of revert will exceed the number of those who are born into the religion because of the sheer amount, right? However, if you look at, I don't know, those practicing ones, etc., I think you can see over time that this narrative will be challenged. That many people actually choose. It's not like they are born into it, but they choose what they are convinced of. And I think that would be, when that time comes, it would be interesting, you know, in terms of dealing with this narrative, right? Whether he, for example, in this case, Ricky Gervais, will still think or view the world as it is now.
That we hold on to these sort of medieval beliefs. You know, where did the universe come from? God made it, which doesn't solve the problem for me, because we straight away say, well, who made God? And if they say, well, he's always been around, Well, let's just say the universe has then. Let's just cut out the middleman. It saves time.
It is.
But that is the last bit that he say. Wouldn't that not fit what he claims as being according to science or scientifically, right? Because if we have established that this universe have a beginning, right? It has a starting point, a beginning. Then to ask what triggers it to start, right? What triggered to begin in the first place? The question of then okay, an eternal creator that creates it, then it will not, because what he asks is that if you cannot answer who created God, or if you say that okay, you claim God is eternal, then why not the universe? But we have established the universe is not eternal in the first place, so you cannot go back there. It's not just like let's assume the universe is not eternal, and then because it's established logical fact, right?
Yes, if we accept that we don't know, if it's the default, we don't know, no one's come back from heaven, no one's proved it, you can't prove the non-existence of something, and why would you? The periodic table of non-existent things is infinite, you know. It's like so if we accept that, that's a knowledge, that's a category of knowledge. But if you just say, what do you believe? You have to step up to the plate. You have to say what you believe. And if you don't believe in any God, right, you're an atheist. That's the other misconception. People think that atheism is denying the existence of God, right? It's not. It's just not accepting the claim that there is a God. You know.
But if there were three doors, which says God exists, God doesn't exist, I don't know.
That doesn't make sense.
There's three doors. It says God exists, it doesn't exist, I don't know.
But you not knowing is irrelevant to where there is or isn't a God. Again, you've done a sleight of hand there on a category mistake, because one is knowledge and two are beliefs, right?
Haven't you finished
one
my
is
question?
No, what? No, there's always... I'm saying three is always there. If you had to choose one...
Yeah.
I believe there's a God. I don't believe there's a God. I don't know is irrelevant then, isn't it? I think they have to lump us in with, agnostics, which I keep trying to explain that on Twitter, that they're not mutually exclusive. You know, one deals with knowledge, one deals with belief, and so people say on Twitter to me, it's illogical to be an atheist. You should be agnostic, and I say, well, I am as well.
Don't agnostics get on your nerves a bit?
Well, no, because we're all agnostic, aren't we? We're all agnostic by definition. If we accept that no one knows knowledge, I'm being very diplomatic here, but if we accept that no one knows that there's a God or not, right? We might be wrong. We're 99% sure, but let's say we don't know. We're all agnostic. So take it out. It doesn't matter. Now we ask about belief. What do you believe? What's your best bet?
But when someone says they're agnostic, isn't it sort of tempting to go, why don't you just think about it a bit more then?
Well, I just think that there's a category mistake. Some people do it because they don't want to say they believe in God, But if you shouldn't ask an agnostic if there's a God or not. You should ask them, do you believe there's a God or not? Because then they can't say I don't know, because that doesn't make sense. What do you mean you don't know whether you believe or not? Right?
That's right.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether Richard Dawkins have the same line of thought, because when he portrays as such, it's basically back to belief, right? Whether you believe there's God and whether you do not believe there's a God, because there's only two options. And his position is that we can never know, because I think that goes back to the empiricism, right? Meaning that because we can never empirically test God, hence we can never know. So that's where I think the question about whether, because this is not by definition, right? Meaning that it's like, do you believe there can be some existence of something that cannot be detected by empirical means, right? If you start there, of course it's a belief, right? Meaning that how do we know, right? But that's where I think there's a question of whether you accept a logical, deduction, or meaning that seeing from a logical perspective, can you accept that as a mean to get to a conclusion, or no? You cannot use logic. You can just use empirical? Right, so I think that is a question that needs to be answered first for this kind of discussion, to be fruitful. Anyway, so this is part 2. I think there will be part 3 from the same channel. We'll take a look at that as well. And that's my thought as I watch it. What do you think? If I have made any mistake in my statements, etc., please point that out. Thank you for watching. See you next time.